Chair Hassan moves that House File 1289 be laid over for possible inclusion in our omnibus bill. Chair Hassan, why don't you tell us about your bill and proceed? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair and members, for the opportunity to present House File 1289, which is the creation of Emerging Developers Fund. We have talked about equity and support for businesses in this community, in this committee a whole lot. And I'm excited we're talking about the Emerging Developers Fund, as this is crucially important for closing the wealth gap in our great state. According to research, Minnesota is the best place to live in America. One of the best places to live in America. It regularly produces some of the highest average scores in nation's SAT exams, boosts disproportionate share of the Rhodes Scholars and admissions to MIT and Harvard. The famed Mayo Clinic, I knew that was going to be the expression, is an international leader in medical research and development of the vaccines for critical diseases such as the COVID-19. Housing prices are considerably low compared to the national median, and shopping is a delight as one of the North America's largest indoor shopping mall. Surprisingly, Minnesota is also one of the worst places for black families to live, measured by racial gaps in unemployment rates, wage and salary incomes, incarceration rate, arrest rates, home ownership rates, mortgage lending rate, test scores, report child maltreatment rate, school disciplinary and suspension rate, and even drowning rate. Black families are far worse off in Minnesota than anywhere else in this nation. And these are not my words. These are the research done by Professor Samuel Myers, Jr. from University of Minnesota. Believe it or not, at one point in Minnesota's history, black residents had high home ownership rates, high levels of academic achievement, impressive contributions to the rest of the world. There were thriving black-owned businesses and a vibrant community of fraternal and social organizations and leaders in virtually every walk of life. And today, the time is right to close the wealth gap. With our state's economy doing so well, with $17 billion surplus, we can fund to support emerging developers who lack the access to capital and networks that can tip the balance to project success. House File 1289 is about economic justice. It's about creating an even playing field for individuals and entities who would like to advance in the developers world. House File 1289 would create a revolving loan fund with no interest or low interest rates, up to $50,000 for pre-development and up to $500,000 for short-term bridge loans. This bill is about creating capital and providing access to those who have been left out. This is timely. This is a timely discussion because we're talking about inequities that exist in our systems, the systems that we ourselves created. We're talking about providing opportunities for folks who do not come from generational wealth. The fund would be accessible to people who have traditionally left out of the real estate development, minorities, those who come from low income, women, and people with disabilities. Among the intended projects are the ones in disadvantaged communities, underserved by traditional developers, or that would increase the availability of affordable housing. This is the right time, this is the right investment. This includes how to find pre-development funds, which are used to things like site inspections, city entitlements, ecological reviews, or agricultural and engineering fees. Those often need to be done before a developer is eligible for a grant or a tax credit. I want to highlight that we do this already with the Department of Agriculture's revolving loan for farmers. And this is a good model. If it's good enough for our farmers, it should be good enough for our emerging developers. With that, Madam Chair, I have a couple testifiers who would highlight the importance of this bill and why we need this fund.
Thank you, Chair Hassan. Do we have our testifiers here ready? Please make your way up, introduce yourself, share your pronouns if you'd like, who you're with, and proceed with your testimony. Thank you.
Ooh, it's a high chair. Madam Chair, thank you. My name is Peter McLaughlin. I'm the Executive Director at the Local Initiative Support Corporation. And it's always good to be back in the House as a former member from the late 80s and early 90s. So glad to be here today. I'm here as the executive director of LISC. We're a CDFI, which makes investments in low-income communities and tries to provide access to capital, technical assistance, and other resources that are necessary in lower income communities that don't have good access to that capital. That's what this bill is about. We have run a program for 2.5 years, an emerging developers of color program. So I'm happy to be here, and I've got two of our participants ready to testify. They're the eloquent ones on this. But I would just say that we got into this work because there was this incredible demand out in the community. There's this desire to become developers in BIPOC communities. It's a desire to help build wealth in the communities, build generational wealth, but also to build projects in communities that will make a difference, that are tied to the communities. And you'll hear some stories today from two of our developers. This is a national phenomenon. The New York Times had an article last weekend. The official data were that there are 112,000 real estate development companies in the country, and 1,000 of them were BIPOC owned. So 111,000 out of 112. And so we are trying to fix that. This bill would help us to get resources into the hands of the BIPOC developers so that they can succeed. We know why there aren't a lot of BIPOC developers. There were restrictions on home ownership, and a lot of times the home is what you mortgage to get your business started. The lack of networks among people who are just getting into the business is an impediment. We're very intentional about both those. We want to provide capital. We want to create a network that our program participants can be in, and then the technical assistance, access to that, and frankly, liquid cash is important because there are fees up front. The pre-development portion of this is important. So that's why we're here. Capital, networks, technical assistance, that's what we believe in. And this bill would help provide those. And we're very excited to support it, and happy to have a couple of our participants come up and testify today. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your testimony, and welcome back to the legislature. It's an honor to have you here. Our next testifier can make their way to the table. And when you arrive, introduce yourself, share your pronouns if you'd like, who you're with, and proceed with your testimony.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My name is Johnny Opara, and I'm the president and CEO of GL Companies. We are a locally based real estate development firm based here in the Twin Cities. We specialize in developing multifamily product here in the Twin Cities, both in the urban core and the suburbs. We have been doing this since 2018. And we are really proud of the fact that ever since getting into this vertical, that we've been able to make effectively trends into making sure that we can, one, be an example of what it takes to work really hard and make sure that we can continue the path to effectively being a developer. And since 2018, I've partnered with LISC, Twin Cities, to work with cities and different other stakeholders within our capital sector to make sure that we can effectively be in a position to hopefully one day close on larger transactions, such as, for example, one of our projects called The Hollows in St. Paul on the Greater East Side. It's an $18.4 million project we just completed at 520 Penn Avenue. Providing 62 homes for individuals and families. Our next project, which is Wingstead Commons, which is in Brooklyn Center. It's a $23 million project. We've been working on that project since 2019. This space that Peter just spoke on, as well as Chair Hassan, Madam Hassan, and that is, this is a very complicated space, and it requires a level of intelligence, character, relationships, network, but more importantly, capital, in order for you to be able to tap into these networks that are kind of close to our vertical for emerging developers that are looking to make a difference in this space. One of the things that I've experienced throughout this time is that the level of capital that's needed prior to entering into the space can range from city fees. If it's a private owner, it could be holding money in escrow. It could be a number of different things that developers, at least from coming into this vertical, not understanding the amount of capital that is needed to be in a position to hopefully continue on this path to become a developer. Those relationships and ties to capital in terms of pre-development or funding for development is going to be key for any developer, specifically emerging developers who don't have the necessary resources to be able to continue on this path. So I would say that from my experience since 2018, from the Hollows to Wangstead Commons and other projects we're working on, it has been very rewarding, but at the same time challenging in trying to build, a company, but at the same time trying to build a organization that has steady capacity, that has the necessary resources, that has the wherewithal, the networks to be able to build high-quality projects that are sustainable, that's going to be around for a long time. And as a long-term owner and operator, it makes sense if you are going to build within the urban core or within areas that look like me or represent a community that the majority does look like me or are women, it would be cool, it would be nice to make sure that there is a developer that has shared similar experiences, understands the nuances of what it takes to grow within those neighborhoods and be able to make something out of themselves. As an immigrant who came here when he was 1 year old and been able to figure out this thing we call life in this state, it has not been easy, but at the same time, I do see that as a competitive advantage in being able to find a path and hopefully be an example to others that are looking to get into this space that is so complex called real estate development. So I appreciate the opportunity and thank you so much.
Thank you so much for your testimony. I appreciate you. I do love the sound of generational wealth building. It sounds great. I'm excited about this bill. Our next testifier can make their way up to the table. And then please introduce yourself when you arrive. Share your pronouns if you'd like, the name of your organization, and proceed with your testimony.
Madam Chair, representatives, it's an honor to be here. My name is Nawal Noor. I am the CEO and founder of Noor Companies. We are a mission-based social enterprise for-profit developer based in Minneapolis. Our work centers on community-centered work. We've worked on a project in Phillips neighborhood. As a developer, I started out in 2012. And the program for emerging developers at that time did not exist, and it made it really, really difficult to be able to be a developer in the state of Minnesota because we don't come from generational wealth, and there are no friends and families to go and call and ask for money. And the traditional financing mechanism, which is getting a loan for a business, does not work for development because there's an inherent risk that's required to hold patient capital until the project is a full project, because several projects die several times before they become real projects. And so I'm here to testify in front of you to say I'm in full support of this bill, and I appreciate the honest sort of interest and also support for this bill, both from Representative Hassan and from all of you, because I think it's the first of its kind, but it's the beginning of many more things that are required to really make sure that this industry is open to developers of color and women, and it's essential that we make sure that we support developers of color in many ways. Pre-development dollars are typical dollars that are really, really hard to come by from a financial institution. And so having low interest or no interest, and I hope that this becomes a grant, is essential component to really making sure that after you have site control that you can make the project become a real development. I will say the first project that I worked on is in South Minneapolis in the Phillips neighborhood. It took 5 years for that project to become a real development project, and it took several millions of dollars, and it was a community-based project. And one of the things that's essential about developers of color is that they address the community needs, and oftentimes those projects, large developers are not interested because it doesn't meet the returns that are required for investors. And so what that means for developers of color is that they struggle with projects a lot longer, they need more capital, and it's not available. And one of the things that I love about, I'm the second in the second cohort of LISC, which is this year, and I'm one of 14 people who are part of this, and all of them have site control for their projects. And what this program provides is capacity building. And for me, for a person who has been in this business for since 2012, which is over 10 years, scale is really important because you can do one-off projects all day long, but it doesn't necessarily make you a real developer that can make a difference in the community and the impact that we need to have. And so I will say, one of the things that I want to highlight is that development is one of the best ways, especially real estate ownership, to create wealth in communities of color. I'm an immigrant. I came here as a 12-year-old immigrant, as a refugee from Somalia. My parents lived in low-income housing, affordable housing for a very long time. I'm an affordable housing developer. We've done multiple projects in Minneapolis, one of which is without comments in the Seward neighborhood, 39 units, large family units, which are really well needed, especially in the communities of color, in immigrant communities where they have large families. That project took 5 years to get fully funded through the state bonding through MHFA. I've served on MHFA's board. It is essential to make sure that very few people actually were able to apply as developers of color through the MHFA application. And the reason is because not only do you need to have site control, you need to have the money to be able to really be an additive to any developer who wants to partner with you. It's the first time since George Floyd's murder for people to be open to the idea of partnering with developers of color. This program is an idea. It's a place for people to get resources that are very much needed in the development space. I'm grateful for your support. I'm really grateful to be here, and I hope that you will support this bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your testimony. Do we have any other testifiers? Any members of the public wish to testify on this bill? Seeing none, I'll turn it over to member questions. Representative Perryman.
Thank you, Chair. Quick question. First of all, I think it's great because it is supporting the emergence of local developers, with incentive to build up their own communities and transform neighborhoods statewide, promote economic development. So great, and St. Cloud's ready anytime. But my big question is, of course, as we always ask, the fiscal note. It's open in the bill, and just would like to ask you what you think and if you have any models or ideas or how this will transform to a fiscal note.
Chair Hassan.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Rep. Perryman, for the question. And we will connect with St. Cloud, hopefully, with this project. It's a blank appropriation, and the reason is I don't know what my targets are going to be. And this is not a project that we have funded in the past. It did pass the House floor and the Senate, and it was included in the omnibus bill last time with the leadership of Chair Noor and Senator Pratt. So the reason why it's blank is I don't know what my targets are, and it's a project that's near and dear to my heart, and I really want to fund it, but I don't know what my targets are, and we'll see what the targets is. This bill is being laid over, so we'll come back to it.
Thank you, Chair Hassan. Any follow-up?
Thank you.
Perryman?
No, thank you, Chair.
Representative Lead Kosnick.
Thank you. Chair Hassan, similar along the same lines of the blank appropriation, what was the amount that was in the previous session for this project, just to give us a ballpark, and if that's a similar amount that you're anticipating once you receive your target, perhaps? And I know you can't commit to an amount, but just to give the committee and the public an idea of how much of an appropriation was done in the previous session, and is that something similar to what you would anticipate the committee may entertain this session?
Chair Hassan.
Thank you, Madam Chair and Lead Kosnick. I don't remember what the last year's proposals were. I was not in this committee, but we can ask our House Research.
Thank you, Chair. And Ken Savory, would you like to comment on this?
Chair and members, I don't have that information right in front of me, but I can look that up as we discuss the bill more and refer back to the committee.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Any other member questions? Seeing none, Chair Hassan, any closing comments?
All right, my computer works. Thank you, Madam Chair and members, for this great conversation. We must be intentional about reducing disparities, as I believe that somebody was intentional about creating these disparities sometime in our past history. And I want to again highlight that we already do this with the Department of Agriculture's revolving loans to farmers, and we can do it in this space. Thank you.
Thank you. And with that, Chair Hassan moves that House Bill 1289 be laid over for possible inclusion in our omnibus package. Thank you, Chair Hassan.